Hello everybody and welcome back to another review. This is a very special review because it's one I've been really excited to do. I hauled this book previously in February and I've only just finished it. I had to kind of start and stop it a couple times and do some rereading when I realized I hadn't quite caught exactly what was going on. That novel is My Arc of Dark Eden by Beckett. This was sent to me by Random House. Needless to say, I really enjoyed this book. Dark Eden is a parable masquerading as science fiction set on an alien world known as Eden. The planet of Eden has no sun of its own. It is entirely dark. Light comes from trees and the actual earth. It is bioluminescence, which I think is really, really great. And we follow primarily a character by the name of John Redlantern. He is one of the 532 human inhabitants of Eden, and they have essentially populated over a series of only about 100-something years. Essentially what happened was that a crew of people from Earth came to Eden and landed, eventually got stranded there, but 3 of the people went back to Earth so that then they could come back to Eden and pick up who got left. Well, it's been 100-something years and they haven't come back yet. So you see how quickly this civilization has devolved in a way. John Redlantern completely begins to question most of his life here in Eden and in what's called family in their circle. And he goes, why are we waiting for Earth? We're too big. We can't stay here, you know. If we keep breeding like this, we're gonna run out of room. Needless to say, he gets in a lot of trouble, and he definitely becomes ostracized from the rest of family, as it's called. One thing leads to another, and John eventually finds himself kicked out of family and off on his own. That's really where the plot, I think, picks up and where things really start happening, and I became much more intrigued with the book. Not to say that I wasn't intrigued to start with. As I said, this book is very much parable masquerading as science fiction. So once I'd realized what the parable was very likely going to be, I could pay attention to some of my favorite things, the biggest of which is world building. Whenever you write anything in fantasy or science fiction, world building is going to be one of the top 3 things you have to do, and you have to do well. The world of Eden is so wonderful. While it's not described in purple prose-esque detail, the writing is surprisingly simple, and yet from all this simple writing, you get this really lush, evocative picture from the beautiful description that Beckett does provide through the eyes of his various characters. I think anyone who's a fan of James Cameron's film Avatar will enjoy the way that Eden is described as a planet and as the way life goes on with it. I mentioned already bioluminescence, which was a big part of the film Avatar, and that for me was probably where I started seeing some similarities, visually at least, in my own imagination. This book has already done extremely well in England. It won the Arthur C. Clarke Award for Science Fiction in 2013, and this is a very prestigious literary award given to great works of science fiction. So it's already done that and done it really well. Like I said, if you live in the UK, this has already been out. You can go and get it. You admittedly will not have this very pretty shiny cover. I think there's a picture of a bug on your cover. But in the US, this book is set to release in April, and I would say keep an eye out for it. This was an amazing book. It wasn't that long. This was an amazing book whether or not you like science fiction. I've noted before several times I don't read that much science fiction in general. I much prefer to watch it. However, if science fiction were more like Dark Eden, I would read more of it. But that's all for me today, you guys. So until next time, cheers.